All right, today I'm going to talk briefly about Super Street Fighter 4, a game that came out back in 2010, about 12 years ago, and it was released for the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. Now, this is a game that was so popular back in the early teens. Myself, along with many other people, feel like that it deserves a 4K HD remake for like the PS5 or the Xbox Series X. Now, granted, with the Xbox Series X, it's backwards compatible with older generation video games that appeared on Xbox One and 360, but that's not the case with the PlayStation 5. Now, you could play a lot of PS4 games on the PS5, but I don't think you could play any PlayStation 3 games on the PS5, at least not to my knowledge or anything like that. But I do feel like Super Street Fighter 4 definitely is deserving of a 4K remake, mainly because when it came out, it was very popular, and the only game that was probably more popular than Super Street Fighter 4 in relation to the fighting genre back in the early teens was I'd probably say Mortal Kombat 9 and maybe, Mortal Kombat 10. Those games were, really popular, and I do feel like Super Street Fighter 4 could have been better than what it was if it had a story mode, because it did not have a story mode. MK9 did have a story mode. Super Street Fighter 4 had basic game modes like arcade, training, and versus, and you also had online multiplayer game mode, which is a step in the right direction, but I don't think it was enough to give people, I guess, the experience that they got if they played, Mortal Kombat 9 or what have you, because that was something that's always been absent and a lot of Street Fighter games in the past. It's just lack of story mode. Now, I know we got a story mode for Street Fighter 5, which came out back in 2016, but Super Street Fighter 4, for the most part, it felt kind of empty once you beat the arcade mode, and if you didn't have anyone to play with, during versus mode or any of that. But we did get to see some cool new characters, and I believe Super Street Fighter 4 had at least 44 characters or something like that. And the game was actually a huge revenue earner for Capcom after it came out back in 2010, because I believe it managed to earn over $67 million for Capcom within the teens decade. So I definitely think that Super Street Fighter 4 is a game that Capcom should definitely consider remaking for current generation game systems later down the line, because they've made constant remakes for Super Street Fighter 2. We've got many versions of that, and I feel like Super Street Fighter 4, or just Street Fighter 4 in general, is one that, it really depends on who you ask. It's probably not the greatest entry in the series, but some people would put it in their top 3 or top 5, because it was something that, I guess, revived interest in the Street Fighter series after it had been dead for so many years, because in the 2000s, for the most part, it was dead, and it was mainly because arcade fighting games were starting to die out during the 2000s, because more people had preferred RPGs and action adventure titles and shooter titles and what have you. But it does seem like Capcom has bigger fish to fry with Resident Evil and the Monster Hunter series and all that stuff, so I'm not exactly sure whether or not a 4K HD remake of Super Street Fighter 4 is something that's on their agenda, but it would be really cool if they did consider making that happen sometime in the future.